Hello everyone, this is Alien Reddit Stories, where I tell alien stories off of Reddit. My YouTube friend Johnny Blix insisted that I leave an intro for this channel, so here it goes. Why won't you subscribe? Alien Reddit Stories. Story number 1. Navy Air Traffic Controller. Middle of the night. No flight ops. Junior guy have to man the room in case watching CNN, eating popcorn. Hard radar return on a 140-mile scope. Watched and crossed the scope at crazy speeds, 1,500 plus miles per hour. Then made a sharp left-hand turn. I mean sharp, 90 degrees in 7 seconds or less. That's how long a sweep takes. Verified with the guy in the Combat Direction Center. Tapes were pulled to review. Everything was recorded. Even if nothing was going on, never heard another thing about it. Everyone I asked just shrugged their shoulders. Terrifying. Might be late to chime in here, but last year, on December 20th-ish, my family and I were driving back from last minute Xmas shopping. We live in a pretty rural area, so no streetlights or anything within 4 or 5 miles of my house. We were coming down the hill towards my driveway when my dad slammed on the brakes of the car. He pointed to a spot above my mom's car who we were following. There was a red light just hanging about 40 to 60 feet above the ground. It was really bright light and stayed there for about 2 to 3 seconds, then started falling. But it didn't fall quickly. It fell extremely slowly for another second or two, then it disappeared. To this day, I do not have a clue as to what it was. It looked like a flare, but it was stuck in the same position for too long, just floating there. Then when it fell, it didn't really fall at all. It just lowered a bit, then it was gone. I had some picture of it on my old phone. I don't know if the picture are salvageable or not since I dropped the phone and the screen's cracked. I could get it tomorrow and see if I could get this picture off. Well, I would absolutely love to see that picture, but I doubt we're ever going to hear from you again, young man, or young sir, or young lady, or young, or whatever you describe yourself as. And story number 3. I know I sound crazy, but I think I may have seen many. My first was when I was 5, remember vividly. It was a huge group of yellow, almost transparent yellow boomerang shapes in a perfect line at the same distance. But transparent, I mean like a static, like a look. I went to get my sister and then they were gone when I got back. Even weirder is that I could see them in the same straight line off in the distance. I've never seen anything that close or that vivid ever since. My next was when I was around 9 to 10. It was a clear night and I decided to go downstairs at 3 in the morning for some reason. When I looked out the window, for some reason, I found a perfect boomerang-shaped, huge ship. I stood there for like 10 minutes just watching it hover there. It was a very creepy thing to watch. My third was when I was looking out my window, as a bored kid would. When I looked, I saw a circular-shaped disc off in the distance. There were very, very dim lights on the edge, revolving on and off, and that's probably the only way I could see it. It looked pretty big, but then again, it was dark and very hard to see. My fourth was a very, very bright light shining bright in the sky. Well, that's pretty redundant. I have a Star Walk app, and nothing that would be so bright and noticeable came up. I just kind of sat for a minute and nothing happened, so I just forgot about it. About 30 minutes later, I heard a very low revolving noise like hitting metal, and it echoes in a small room. The noise was very low. This was also happening relatively recently. My final possible sighting. I'm a bit iffy on this, but I'm starting to change my mind. It was actually today at around 7 o'clock. It was a bright light, almost exactly like the ones above that I wrote about. A bright light, but this time it was moving very, very slowly, almost unnoticeable unless you watched over time. I had watched it for almost 5 minutes and it was definitely moving. There were no flashing lights, definitely not a satellite or shooting star. After a while it started to disappear. It literally just got so dim I couldn't see it. Even then, there were no flashing lights. After about 30 seconds, it came back just like before and kept moving very slowly until it disappeared behind the trees. Story number 4. I live in Cocoa Beach, Florida as a young adult in the 1970s. The town is located near Cape Canaveral, and NASA's space activity at the time was at its peak. Maybe extraterrestrials found those activities particularly interesting. My whole family was enjoying sitting outside the house one night when we saw a bright white light approaching quickly in our direction. The light suddenly turned off red as the craft went into the opposite direction. It disappeared as if it had covered many miles in just a couple seconds. It was silent the whole time. My dad, who was literally a rocket scientist called a couple of high-level colleagues at NASA and the U.S. Air Force and described the sight as, yep, he was told that it sounds like some sort of aircraft, but nothing we Earthlings have the technology to manufacture. Yeah, understandable. They officially noted it as a UFO, but did not commit to calling it extraterrestrial. A few weeks later, I was walking out the local library at night. There was an unusual light coming from the sky, so I looked it up. This thing was huge and probably low, probably just a couple of 100 feet over the one-story library building and about the size of the library's parking lot. It was round and looked like a special effects prop, and I hardly believed my eyes, much less ears, because there was just no sound. Fortunately, someone walking out of the library at the same time also saw the exact same thing. We both looked at each other, awestruck. Did you see that? I feel fortunate that the stranger was in the parking lot at the same time. Otherwise, I would have assumed I was crazy. You know what? I'm going to give you guys one more story, alright? Why? Because you deserve it, alright? Well, I saw a UFO. Final story. Well, I saw a UFO, but only because it was unidentifiable. It was late, and I was sleeping on my friend's couch when I saw a very bright star in the distance, except I realized it was getting brighter. Eventually, I started to be able to perceive motion at an angle coming towards me. As it got closer, I could perceive more and more of the motion. But when it got as close as I did not go overhead, but continued on as its heading on its heading. Once it got out of the field, out of view of the window, it was nothing but a very bright object, just absolutely glowing with light. And I was traveling a constant and my God, let me tell you again. And as I described before, at a distance, its motion was imperceptible, but it grew as it came closer, indicated to me that it was traveling at a constant velocity, speed, and direction. For as long as I saw it, it was very unusual to me. If I had to decide on shape, it looked like it was a rectangular-ish, with sides slightly longer than its face and lined with these incredible lights. But that might have been in my head, trying to find some shape outside of the brightness. Mind you, this was coming east over Lake Champlain and directly over Burlington, Vermont, where I was. So it's not exactly something that would go unnoticed. So I shrugged it off as a weird military thing. Also, there's a causeway in Burlington for an old railroad that's broken in the middle and turned into, for its length, an extension of the local bike path. It's a very surreal experience following this strange gravel path through the middle of the lake. For reference, well, it was a bright spring day in 2011, and I decided to take this path to the end. I maybe passed one person on the entire thing. Once I was far out there, I started to hear this massive knocking sound, like someone was knocking on the sky. If it were made out of glass, I thought at first it could be gunshots. Sounding weird because of where I was. Maybe it was, but it sure as hell didn't sound like gunshots. They came intermittently, and I didn't seem to have any direction. Not loud in an abrasive way. They just sounded like something that every damn resident near the waterfront should have heard. I didn't see anything about it though. It was around the time those YouTube videos from all over the world were coming out with just totally inexplicable, loud, filling sounds. But through the tiny sound, I couldn't confirm it was the same thing. The videos varied too much. So I just looked this video up, and this sounds pretty damn close. Yeah, I'm not going to go ahead and show you a video. Okay, I don't have that kind of technology yet. Maybe later on in future Alien Reddit stories, I can actually step my game up. With that being said, that brings us to the end of our stories. I'm not gonna lie, these UFO sightings are so frequent that it's hard to keep up with them. Quite frankly, I think I actually already read that story. I'll be complete disclosure here. Most of the way through, I think I already said that story once. I'm 47 videos into this, and I don't know. I got countless stories I've read, but I'm trying to keep you guys with new and fresh stories because they deserve it. Regarding the stories, that one story with the lady with the orb following her husband's car, that was kind of trippy. Imagine you're just like following your old lady in a car, you and your son, and you're just driving along with your dad, and you just see an orb flying over your mother's car, like 2-car America. Remember 2-car America? My God, now we got people living in their whole families in a car. What has happened to this country and what has happened to the world? I don't know. Well, what I do know is that this phenomenon is not going to stop. There's umpteen million cases of UFOs, unidentified flying objects, all over the world, and they have a lot of similarities. They're very, very, very consistent, which I find to be quite odd. What are the chances of these things being consistent? Seriously, consider that. Like, of all things that you could be, you seem to be the same thing over and over again. Perhaps it's the efficiency of the shape of the sphere. Perhaps it's a circle, the orb. It has a maximum distribution of weight over surface. It's perfect. It's perfect for logical, mathematical reasons. And for these reasons, as well as the lights, the light configuration, which is completely panoramic, triangle-shaped lights. It's panoramic. You get every angle. You flood it. It's almost like a horse's face. You know how horses kind of got like a triangle nose? It allows their eyes to see over the 95-degree angles at the back of that slong-jawed face. Understand what I'm saying? But I digress. These are just my machinations. These are just my thoughts. I'm thinking on the fly here, and quite frankly, I've been thinking about the subject for a very long time. So some of this may seem rather freely thought, but it's from a background of thinking about this beforehand. I am quite have a good grasp of language, but I'm not that good. Okay, but what I'm good at is pushing people. I'm gonna push you. Okay, go ahead. I'm pushing you right now. Do you feel me? Do you feel me pushing in your chest? I'm pushing you again. Feel it? Now take your finger, take your index finger. Yeah, that one, that index finger. Go ahead and press subscribe. It costs nothing. It costs you $0.00. And you'll support alien Reddit stories. Do it! It will liberate you. And I'll see you next time on Alien Reddit Story. Love ya.